Where did the idea that you need a $1 million retirement nest egg come from? And how important is that number to individual retirees? In my opinion, it's not really helpful and could actually be really harmful to a lot of people. Stick with me as I explain why in many cases retirees actually need less than you may imagine. So where did the $1 million number come from? The figure of 1 million is a recommended retirement nest egg. It's a rule of thumb that became popular in the early 1990s as a result of a study conducted by financial planning expert William Bengen. Bengen's study examined the maximum safe withdrawal rate that a retiree could sustain from their savings over a 30-year retirement period without running out of money. He found that historically a 4% withdrawal rate is sustainable in most market conditions, assuming a balanced portfolio of stocks and bonds. Of course, this maintained that no matter what happened, even in the Great Depression, you never, ever change that withdrawal rate. Using this withdrawal rate as a guide, Bengen calculated that a retiree would need a portfolio of approximately $1 million to generate a sustainable annual income of $40,000 adjusted for inflation going forward. So it's a big round number used in a study because it's easy to understand and more relevant than using 100,000 or 10 million. Well, that makes sense, but for many people, I believe they should throw that number in the garbage because rules of thumb are not important. What is important is the specifics of your situation. I think a lot of people misjudge how much they will need in retirement because of that number, and it causes them unnecessary stress and anxiety around money. And some may even believe that retirement is unattainable, so they just give up. But I believe in many cases, retirees actually need less than they may imagine. I can hear already people in my industry whispering, "Don't tell them that, Colin." But the key is to actually plan it out with real numbers. So let's look at a few things. The information in this video is for educational purposes. This is not specific financial planning, health insurance, or investment advice. In addition, everyone's tax situation is different. You should discuss your tax situation with a qualified tax advisor before implementing any planning strategy. For decades, financial planners, we worked off an assumption that retirement expenses rise with inflation over time, like a straight, slow-moving line increasing a little every year. It was easy to calculate and prepare a financial plan and pretty easy to understand. But that isn't actually how most people spend money in retirement. You see, what I found in working with my practice, and it's actually been backed up with other information, is that retirement spending looks more like a smile. Spending is most often higher than expected in the first few years of retirement as you spend money doing all the things you didn't have time to do while working. You know, the bucket list items. That makes sense. Then once you've done those, typically expenses fall pretty significantly as you spend more time around your home until you eventually have health issues and your costs rise back up in the form of medical expenses. Planning using the SMILE method instead of a straight line increase can make a big difference in the size of the nest egg that you need. In my opinion, the 3 key questions to ask yourself are: how much are you going to pay in taxes? Do you have a mortgage in retirement? And what will your out-of-pocket medical costs be? These will most likely be your 3 biggest expenses in retirement. So understanding how they work can really help you determine how much money you will need. Let's first look at taxes. What type of accounts that your funds are in can dramatically affect how large of a portfolio you need. Are you taking advantage of health savings accounts, Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, and other tax-advantaged vehicles? Or is everything in a traditional pre-tax retirement account? Your taxes in retirement, depending on how you get your income, can be pretty significant, or they can be greatly reduced with proper planning. But the delay and pray strategy can mean you need a bigger nest egg. Remember, for every dollar you distribute from a pre-tax retirement account, the federal government gets its share. So the more you have accumulated in pre-tax retirement accounts, the more potential tax you have to pay. What state will you be living in during retirement? Some states tax retirement distributions and others don't. Additionally, some states cost a heck of a lot more to live in than do others. That can impact the size of the retirement nest egg you need. Someone living in states like New York, New Jersey, and California would need a much larger nest egg than someone who retired to a low tax and a low cost of living state. Will you have a mortgage? Many people in their 50s and 60s have a mortgage. The really cheap mortgage rates of the past decade made it very enticing to lock in a rate below 4%. Should you focus on paying off that 3% or 4% mortgage, or keep those funds growing in an investment or real estate portfolio? It's a personal decision, but I think it dramatically affects how much you need to accumulate. If you have a paid off mortgage, you may need significantly less in a retirement portfolio than you think because you don't have that monthly mortgage payment to worry about. Healthcare costs. Take a look at the national average cost of healthcare per person in retirement and factor that expense into your plan. The most recent study by Fidelity Investments found that a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2022 can expect to spend an average of $315,000 in healthcare and medical expenses throughout retirement if enrolled in traditional Medicare. And this doesn't count long-term care. In a 20-year retirement, that averages to just under $16,000 per year for a married couple. Of course, that number is smaller in the first decade of retirement than it often is in the second decade. Okay, now that you have an idea about your 3 largest expenses in retirement, let's move forward and work on figuring out your retirement income needs. Usually when people are thinking about retirement, they're currently working and they're using their current income level as a starting point, as it's their current standard of living. So let's do that. What are some of the things being deducted from your paycheck that will not be deducted in retirement? The first and most obvious are work-related expenses, but what are they in your situation? And what do they add up to? Things like union dues or association fees, uniforms or nice suits if you live up in New York City and need to wear those every day. Commuting costs like gas, maintenance, tolls, parking fees, bus or train costs, and also continuing education and training expenses. There's a good bit of these. The second is how much of your income you are saving. Obviously, when you're retired, you're spending, not saving. So if, for example, you're currently saving 10% of your pay into your 401k, that's an expense that you no longer have. Third, Social Security taxes. 6.2% of your wages on the first $160,200 in 2023, they go to Social Security. Fourth, Medicare taxes. 1.45% of your wages go toward Medicare. But unlike Social Security, there is no income cap on these taxes. Okay, what I want you to do is take your current gross income and subtract those expenses. Let's say that you're spending 5% of your gross pay on work-related expenses that go away when you retire. Let's assume you're diligently saving 10% of your gross pay for your retirement and you're paying 7.65% of your gross income on Social Security and Medicare taxes. That means that you can reduce that income level to 77.35%. This is where another rule of thumb comes into play that says assume you'll need 80% of your final year's gross income. I've seen that in a lot of places, and it's pretty close at this point, but we haven't yet taken into account any federal and state taxes you're currently paying while working and if you will be paying a mortgage in retirement. According to the most recent update from the Tax Foundation, they found on average federal tax rate of 14.6% for the top 50% of taxpayers. Let's also assume another 2.4% for state and local taxes. That's 16% total. So we can subtract that in the number. In your case, subtract the effective tax rate, not your highest rate, but the effective tax which covers your entire income range. In this example, we are now down to 61% of your gross income. If you will have a paid off mortgage, you can reduce your income need by that annual amount. So if you're currently paying a mortgage and it's scheduled to be paid off by the time you retire, whatever that annual mortgage payment is, you can reduce that from that gross income number. Lastly, will you be receiving Social Security? Most people will, and in 2023, according to the Social Security Administration, the average annual payment for a 65-year-old was roughly $30,000 a year. And if you're married and both spouses worked, you may be able to double that number, but every situation is different. So make sure you check out your number, and let's assume that you keep 85% of that income after taxes. Subtract that number to figure out your income need to maintain your current standard of living. This is now the starting point using actual numbers to figure out how much per year you need from your portfolio. I'd venture to guess, especially if you have a paid off home, that this number is substantially lower than your current gross income. It may be even surprising how much lower it is. And if it's lower than $40,000, then you may not need anywhere near $1 million nest egg. I'd encourage you to take a look at your own specific situation. Run the numbers using this strategy, and you'll have a great starting point to what you may need each year for retirement in current dollars. That'll make it a lot easier to figure out whether $1 million nest egg is too much, not enough, or just right. And make sure you check out this video next in order to supercharge your investment portfolio.